Welcome to our series, Reflection on the Life of Joseph. Few minutes of your time, and we look at one or two lessons we can learn from this story, and that's it. And today, I want us to talk about the power of forgiveness. One of the most difficult things that as human beings we have to do once in a while, it is to forgive. And forgive means somebody has done something wrong to you. He has hurt you. And one of the most difficult things is for you not to hurt back, to forgive. Why am I saying that? Because in the story of Joseph, one of the last things he does was to forgive his brothers. The story starts with him on his way, lands in Egypt because of the malice and the cruelty of the brothers. At the end of the story, the brothers come to him and they ask him, please forgive us. They're kneeling before him as if trying to bring fulfillment to that dream. And they come to him, please forgive us. And afraid that this guy now has the power to destroy us. And the question is, when we have succeeded in life, what do you do with that power, that privilege that you have? Do you use it to destroy all those who were attacking you, all those that made your life difficult? Hey, we know them. They are there. All of those of us who have succeeded, there are some memories where you remember that so-and-so, this and that happened, and now I've got the opportunity. I'll get even. Now, Joseph, 4 things I want us to look at in that chapter, in chapter 50, that comes out from that story. When the brothers come to him, this is the response that Joseph gives them. He says to them, am I in the place of God? Verse 20 says, but as for you, you meant evil. You meant evil against me. You did something wrong. First thing, before you forgive, the one that must be forgiven must be found guilty. You do not forgive a person who has not offended you. In other words, as you forgive, it must be clear that I know you did wrong. One of the things that we do as human beings, when we try to be spiritual, when we try to be religious, and a person says, I know that I did something wrong to you, please forgive me. Say, oh, don't worry, that was nothing. If it was nothing, you don't need to forgive. You don't forgive for nothings. The reason I forgive it was what you did was painful. What you did was actually against me. You meant evil. You wanted to destroy me. Now, you don't have to say it like I do, like you're preaching to the person and telling him, but you must know it in your heart that these people, this person, that one, that individual, that friend of mine, actually wanted to destroy me. He did. Now, some people would say, the second thing, there's no way I can forgive him for what he did to me. And then you ask why. Because what he did to me was so painful. Yeah, that's why you should forgive. Now listen, you cannot forgive a person for doing something to you that was not painful. If what he did was not painful, why should you forgive? That's why you should forgive, because it was painful. So when you forgive, you let go of the desire to pay back. You let go of the desire to say, now I'm going to avenge you because I find you guilty. The next thing is justice. Now, to forgive is to let go of justice, is to say, I will not do what you deserve. I find you guilty, but I will not do what you deserve. Instead, I will forgive you. And I'm going to give you a reason why you should do that. And the second thing, Joseph says, but God, you meant evil, but God meant it for good. In other words, you, led by the devil, wanted to destroy me. And he's not even angry at them because he knows who was behind. But God meant it for good. Sometimes we can be so obsessed with our enemies and we forget who our friends are. We forget that God was on our side. And then we place ourselves in the center. As Joseph says, am I in the place of God? Remember, the story says, and the Lord was with Joseph. So whatever else was done by whoever, it was an attempt to remove the presence of God in the life of Joseph. It was a way of making sure that the dream that God had is not fulfilled. So in other words, if I walk with God, if I have a relationship with God, and because of that relationship, I've got enemies, it is not personal. They're not hating me. They're hating the relationship I have with God. In other words, they have a problem with God. That is why Joseph says, am I in the place of God? God made it for good. In other words, even though you did that, God vetoed. God actually, through his providence, made sure that he will use even that which you did for his own purposes. You sold me to Egypt. Look now where I am. And I'm here doing God's purpose. I'm here to save you. In other words, as much as you can think of the pain that people have caused you in your life, remember that God was with you. He even used that pain. So don't take it to yourself. Don't take it upon yourself to get even. And he says, now therefore, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure that you get the best. Because God had a plan, and that plan was to save you. There was a purpose, and the devil was afraid of that purpose. Therefore, you must not be afraid. But it doesn't say, and please be very careful, because sometimes when we forgive, we can be too excited, and that will put us into a serious problem. He doesn't say, you know what, because it was God's plan that I should be in Egypt, that I should do this. Actually, what you did was right. You know, you should do it again, because the Lord, in the Bible says, when people tempt you, when people make your life difficult, God can actually use that to bring you closer to him. But the Bible says, woe unto those who have brought that pain. As much as your pain and your discomfort that you throw in my path brings me closer to God, it does not justify it. It does not make it right. So, in my forgiving, in my attempts to forgive you, I must acknowledge that and not start praising you for what you did, because you will do it to me and continue to do it even to others. So that's why Joseph had to find them guilty. But he sees God's hand in the whole thing. Sometimes we become so malicious, so full of bitterness. You know what they call bitterness? To be bitter? It is drinking acid, hoping that the person you hate will die. Actually, bitterness destroys us. We end up with ulcers and all kinds of things. As they say, it's not what you eat, it's what eats you. The things that are eating us inside are the ones that destroy us. This person you were not willing to forgive. There he goes, enjoying his life, and you are suffering. But remember, one of the reasons why we are afraid to forgive, we think it is reconciliation. Forgiveness is not reconciliation, it is forgiveness. Forgiveness is one way. Forgiveness, you forgive even if the person does not come to you. You forgive even if he dies, having not confessed, you forgive. Forgiveness is what you do for yourself. When you forgive, you are freeing yourself from prison. Because as long as you don't forgive, you are in prison. So when you say, I want to forgive you, it is because you love your comfort. You love your peace of mind. And you ask God to give you strength to forgive. Of course, that brings healing also. Because when you forgive, God has a way of working miracles and he brings about healing. Not the person who did wrong, but God is the one who heals. You can't say, come and ask for forgiveness so that I can be healed. You can't offend me and heal me. Then you are too powerful in my life. You can offend me, but my healing comes from God. And because God has healed me, I can forgive you. So forgiveness is possible. Now, for example, I've mentioned reconciliation. Reconciliation is another story altogether, which is not part of my presentation. Reconciliation is when a person has wronged you and he comes to you and asks for forgiveness and even admits that I've made wrongs, and then you forgive, and then you reconcile, and then you work together. That's what Joseph does, because they were asking for forgiveness. But if a person does not confess, does not admit, there's no way you're going to be reconciled. You cannot remain friends and buddy friends and lend each other cars and everything when you know what you did last time. But you will not keep that in your heart so that it makes you bitter. What you do, you forgive and you learn the lessons and you move forward, not keeping it in your heart. But reconciliation is another chapter we're not dealing with. But forgiveness is something we can do. There is power in forgiving. You know what? You know why we need to forgive? It is because the Bible says so. It says forgive, and may God bless you as you do that. You can forgive You can forgive because you yourself have been forgiven. That's where you get the power. God bless you.